So I did this presentation, and I did a breakout session talking about mind-body medicine and how we're all connected. And these are students that are, they're high school students, but they've committed to or feel drawn toward the health profession. So it's a Health Occupational Students Association. And I show up, my breakout's at 10 o'clock, I get there about 9:30. The whole place is just chaos. Everybody's running around. I'm looking for the person who's supposed to be the, get me to where it was that I was supposed to be going. She's nowhere to be found. I finally track her down, and she's like, "Hi, I'm Andre, good to meet you. Can you sort your way out?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll figure it out." I could just tell that she was like so stressed. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I had a half an hour before my thing, so she's off. She said, "I got so many things on my plate." She goes running off. And then I go up to like this table where there were some kids there, and I introduced myself. I'm Bobby Cobb. I'm here to do a presentation at 10 o'clock. And, can you tell me like where I'm supposed to show up? Where am I supposed to be? And she was a millennial, or I guess a millennial, or Gen I, whatever they call them now. So she says, and she has a real weird vocal affect. She's like, "Sir, I think if we just go over to this table, they'll be able to help you." And so we go walking over to this table, and we're looking down at the thing, and I said, "I'm Bobby Cobb, I'm here to do a presentation." And the young lady says, she goes, 10 o'clock in the Willow Room. And I said, "Good." And then I said, "Could I have that?" It's the little guide of everything that's going on during the day. And she says, this is my copy, this is my only copy." And I'm like, "Well, are there others laying around?" I'm thinking, certainly there's gotta be pamphlets and other stuff laying around. And she's like, "No, this is the only one that we've got." And she's all nervous. Everybody's got this really nervous energy, except for the girl who's like showing me around. And she said, the girl showed me around, says, "Maybe you can just take a picture of it, sir. Do you know how to use your smartphone?" And I'm like, "All right, smart ass little kid. Yes, I know how to use my smartphone." And she said, "Well, maybe you could just take a picture of it then." So I get my phone out, and I'd been up, it was at the Hilton, and I'd been up to the 12th floor, and I took one of those panoramic shots of, just the whole scenery and everything. So and I did cop a little attitude with this girl. I'm like, yeah, smart little whippersnapper. I know how to use my iPhone. And so then I go to take a picture, but it's on panoramic still. And she looks at that, and she goes, "Sir, your phone's on panoramic. You're gonna want to switch that to photo." And I just busted up laughing. I'm like, all right, I had that coming. That was, my ego popped up. Time to slap it back.
You let me do it that way because you were a slow reader.
Exactly.
At least they didn't call you Gramps.
Well, I told that story to my daughter, and my daughter says to me, "Dad, you're so boomer." Which I didn't even know was a thing. I'm like, "What does that mean?" And she goes, "No offense, Dad, but people your age are just clueless." And I'm like, "So is that a thing? I mean, so boomer?" And she goes, "Yeah." And over the phone, I can hear her rolling her eyes. "Yeah, definitely a thing, and you're living it there." Okay, so I was going to tell a joke. I guess I will serve.
That was a joke.
That was a joke. We're good. We got that out of the way. So as Dawn says, I do a lot of different things. Mainly, I work through transformation. I help people who are going through transitions use the transitions that they're going through to transform. And really what I'm trying to get them to transform into is a new understanding of the way that life works, the way that our mind works, the way that energy flows through us. But if you think about it, energy is flowing through us, and Don's talking about circulation. It flows through us, but where does it go? I mean, if you think about our circulatory system, the thing that's really flowing, our blood is flowing through us all day, every day, all night, every night, but it's not going anywhere. It just keeps coming back to our heart, back to our center. There's a flow of life, and when that flow stops, our body stops, and sometimes we get interrupted from that flow. So, like the clients who come to me, I advertise on Google and Facebook, and I advertise in different places that are places people who are in crisis are going to show up to. And if I'm lucky, my ad pops up when they're just like, man, life sucks. And if I'm lucky, they see that ad and they respond to that ad, and then they call me up. And when they call me up, oftentimes they're in the shit. I mean, they're not feeling bad. I have a lot of people who call me up crying when they cry up. I had a guy call me not too long ago who he says to me, "Are you the hypnotist?" And Dawn, I tend to ramble, so can you give me like a 10-minute thing? Yeah, I know. Thank you. He calls me up and he said, in tears, "Are you the hypnotist?" Well, yeah, I guess. And he said, "Can you make people disappear from my memory? Can you make people disappear from my life?" And I said, I said, well, maybe, if that's really what you want to have happen. But let's talk about it a little bit to see if that's what you really want.
Now, was he looking for a hypnotist or a hitman?
Yeah, exactly. I think actually he was looking for a hitman. That's correct. Yeah, that's probably what he was actually looking for. But he found my ad. So I know people normally, when I talk to people for the very first time, they're in crisis, they're hopeless, which for the work that I do, that's kind of where I want them, because that's where the very best work for doing the type of stuff that I do can get done. So I tell people I'm a liberation hypnotist, and they say, "What's that?" normally, which is the question that I want them coming back with. And I say, well, I'm different from other hypnotists because most hypnotists want to put you to sleep. I'm here to wake you up. And I'm here to wake you up out of the trance of the hypnosis of social conditioning. We've been conditioned to believe that life happens one way. And deep down we know that that's wrong. We can feel that it's wrong. And like in the Matrix, Morpheus says to Neo, he says, "It's been bugging you." It's like a splinter in your mind that you just know that something is a little off and a little different. And when people come to me and they ask all kinds of things, I mean, it's so weird, the things that I get asked, can I do? I always answer yes. And I know two things. The reason that I answer yes is because I've come to understand everything that we're consciously aware of that we would like to change in our life, we have the ability to make that change. Everything that we're consciously aware of that we'd like to have change, we can change, and that change is awaiting us at our next evolution. So we should just evolve. And that change wouldn't show up in your awareness, and this is something that we teach in hypnosis, and the type of hypnosis that I study. It wouldn't show up in our consciousness if it wasn't for the fact that our unconscious mind is saying, okay, you're ready for this change now. And go out and make the change. And Phil is a hypnotist, Dawn is a hypnotist. This is the work that we do. And through this work, we've come to understand that when people show up, they're ready to make that change. So when people ask me, can you help me make this change? The answer is always yes, because I know I'm not the one that's making the change. They are. And I have no idea how to make most of the change that I make, but they do. And I'll tell you a quick story. One of the very first demonstrations I gave when I began teaching hypnosis, a person volunteered and came up. And I always tell people, if you're coming up, let's work on something. Let's work on a small change. Let's not work on something gigantic. And in this particular person, I was doing a pain demonstration. And she came up and she had pain in her back, and so we were going to go explore that. And we were doing a regression. And we went back to the regression, and she regressed back to when she was 4, which was when the pain started. And just having done a lot of this stuff, I'm thinking, that's weird that it's going back. She was like 60 something, and you got pain from when you were 4. And she said, yeah. And I said, okay, so, tell me a little bit, your regress. So she's back there in her mind. She's fully present. And when I get her back there, I start to ask orienting questions to make her experience of then become now. So we're transforming it from then to now. We want her back there at 4. So I'm asking her all types of questions. I said, where are you? She said, I'm in my bedroom. And I said, what can you see? She said, I can only see the red blanket over my head. And I said, okay, so are you lying in bed? Yep, lying in bed. Okay, lying in bed with a red blanket on your head. And the orienting questions are just day or night, are you alone or with others? What are you doing? What are you wearing? And the more of those things that we bring in from their unconscious, the more she zooms from 2015 to whatever year that was, 1964. So she's back in 1964, fully present. And I say, are you alone or with others? And she said, there's somebody else in the room. And I said, who is it? And she said, it's my uncle. And I immediately know, and everybody that's in the group immediately knows, this is not going to be a short demonstration. And, we come to find out. So I say, so your uncle's there. Is he there for good reasons or bad? And she said, he's there for bad reasons. And she starts to cry, and she said, he's a very bad man. And she's crying like a little kid. And somebody in the audience says, one of my students says, we should stop this. And I just held my hand out, and I said to the girl, the woman, I said, I just want to remind you that, while you're 4 in your bed underneath the blanket, you are also in another reality, in a hotel ballroom, in a hypnosis class, and there's lots of people watching. Do you want to continue, or would this be something that you'd like to work on a little bit later? And she said, I'm ready to continue. And there was this gasp of people like, oh no, he's gonna go there. and some of the people left the room, and we ended up doing the work, and she ended up getting resolution, and it took about 2 hours, which threw my whole agenda of the class. This was supposed to be like a 10-minute demonstration. And afterwards, people came up and they were like, that was really cool. How did you do that? And I said, I did that just because everything I'm teaching you, that it's not about me. It's never about me, the change that I do. It's about her. She was ready now. She knew that she was in this room, but her unconscious mind was telling her she was ready. And that became that was the best class by far I've ever had. I mean, people were crying. We're all still really good friends. It was amazing. So I know one thing when people show up, that whatever they are asking me, can you fix this? The answer is always yes, because I'm not the one that's doing the fixing. They are. I'm just along for the ride, and I'm just a guy who's learned to ask good questions and to kind of bring people back into the experience. The second thing I know is whatever they show up, the change that they tell me that they're looking for, what we say is their presenting issue, is never the issue. Never once has that ever never been the issue, not one time. And I did hypnosis for a long time before I realized that. But the change that they're looking for is the change that we're all looking for. If we're seekers, if we're looking for stuff, this is the change that we're all looking for. And I became like my like full-time seeking journey, and Don says, I found Adam. I kind of feel like Adam found me. And the way that I got up here is so weird. Dawn told you a little bit about the story, but that's just a small part of it. I mean, there were so many weird things that happened in my life that I literally just one day go, what the hell, man? I'll move to Alaska. And that was about, at the end of it, about as much thought as I put into it. And I made a commitment when I came up here, because of some commitments that I had to make when I came up here, that I would be up here for a year. And I'm living with a friend of mine. I'm renting a room from her. And she said the other day, she goes, I'm ready to get out of Alaska. And I said, huh. And she said, what would you do if I left? Because I'm renting a room in her place. I said, I don't know, but I'm staying. I know right now I'm not going anywhere else. And I say that because just like where I am on my journey, I know this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And sometimes when I do like corporate events, particularly if, I'll speak for like 2.5 hours in a keynote presentation, I start off by saying, I've got the secret to life and I'm going to give it to you before we leave here. And it's short, it's easy, you'll be able to take it with you. And they wrote a book about it. But don't go and get the book, because the guy who wrote the book had just gotten back from India. He had found his guru. His life was changing completely. He was a Harvard professor, and he had went to India on his journey, and he met his guru, Neem Karoli Baba was his name, and he came back and he was just filled with the love of devotion for this guru. Plus he was real, this was like the 70s, late 60s, 70s, he was real heavily into acid. And he wrote this book, and you may have read the book. The book, as you open it up, it's beautiful, it's very artistic, and a lot of the words are in these circles. And you kind of like, you're like reading the book, and you're like, man, I get that this guy was on a drug trip when he wrote it, but I'm kind of like, feel like I'm on a drug trip trying to read it. But you don't need to read the book, because the secret of life is in the title. Anybody know what the title is?
Be Here Now.
That's exactly right. Ram Dass wrote the book, Be Here Now. And that is what I know these people who come to me crying and saying, can you help me? I always answer yes, because I know it's not me that's going to be doing the help, it's their unconscious mind that's going to be doing the help. And I also know that's really not what you're looking for. You're looking for something else. I have a new client that I just started working with. She's in somewhere in Alabama. And she's 73 years old, and she is a hot sauce bottler. She does the bottling. People make the hot sauce, or they give her the recipe and say, this is my hot sauce. And she makes it minimum batch 500 gallons, and then she bottles it and labels it. So, if you have burn your sphincter on the way out hot sauce, and you're a small batch craft hot sauce maker, she's your woman for doing this. And she wants to get out of the hot sauce business. And so she sees me and she goes, I found 2 of your websites. I found one website where you're like this transformative change dude. And I found this other website where you do leadership. Transformative Leadership Consultants is my other website. And she goes, are you the same guy? And I'm like, yep, I'm the same guy. And she goes, and you do both of these things? And I said, yep, I do both of these things because they're the same thing. But that's what people don't actually understand. They are, and she says, can you help me? And I said, okay, what are your goals? And you know, this is a 73-year-old successful woman, and her goals are crystal clear in her mind, and she's rattling them off, 21 bullet items. And I, at one point I'm like, I should write these down. She says, I have them written down. I'll just send them to you. Don't write them down. And she's like, and at the end of it, she says, can you help me? And I said, yes, I can help you. And she said, what are your protocols? And so I start going into, you know, just sort of doing stuff up. And I've started working with her, and we've been working together just a little while. And she goes, I'm beginning to sense that her main goal was she wanted to sell her business. She wanted to take it, it's doing $2.5 million a year in sales right now. She wants to take it to 10 because based on some multiplier of something, she figures she's going to get some amount of money, and that's enough money to do everything else that she wants to do. I can't remember half of it. But she says, midway into it, she goes, this isn't really about selling my hot sauce business, is it? And I said, no, I don't think it is. I mean, we'll see. You know, as things begin to unfold, we begin to realize that it looks like, and this is the here part of be here now, it looks like to us when we're going through the world that something out there is going to give us what we want in here. Selena gave a presentation at the Whole Life Festival, and she had a cool little triangle. Be, here, is that what? No, be, do, have. She had be, do, have. And she went through the presentation and explained to people that we think that if we have certain things, that we'll be able to do certain things, and then we'll be differently, or we'll have difference. I'm messing it up, I'm sorry. But that's the conditioning. You know, we believe, and Madison Avenue wants us to believe, if we buy the right Jeep that's muscular, that we will have self-confidence, and we will be able to get laid by that beautiful woman who's just going to say, this is my Alaska man. We think that it's something out there that's going to give us something that we're looking for in here, but that's not the way that it works, because the circulation goes around and our heart pumps 24/7, but it always comes back to here. And as you begin to let this stuff unfold, you can kind of see that here is all there really is. That we're just looking to be here. So the B part of that is being, short for being. And you've heard the phrase, everybody I know in this room certainly has heard the phrase that we're not human beings that occasionally have a spiritual experience. Instead, what are we? Everybody in the room knows it. We're actually spiritual beings having a human experience. Say it again?
So we're just human.
We're not just human, actually. I'm going to actually challenge you on that a little bit. We're not human. We are currently having a human experience. But we are something different, something more. We are spiritual beings. And if you'd like to play around for just a second, when are we stopping? Just so I know.
Around 10:30, 10:35.
Okay, let's do 10:35. I'd like you to play around with a little bit of an experience. And I want to show you something that will change what Richard said. And what Richard said is what we've been conditioned to believe, that we're just human. But we're not just human. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So you can do this with your eyes open. It's better if you do it with your eyes closed. And what I'm going to do is just take you on a quick little journey. And I'm going to have you bounce back. We're going to start with the age that you are now. And then we're going to bounce back to your last birthday that you had that ended in 9. I'm 59. So for me, my last one before would be 49. So we're going to bounce back and bounce back. And I'm just going to ask you some questions. And I'm going to ask you some of those orienting questions that I told you about. And I'm going to take you all the way back to 9. So if you, and it'll just take a second. I mean, this is not like going to be a big hypnotherapy trip. But, so just get comfortable, close your eyes, take in a nice deep breath. And just think about you right now. If somebody says, "Who are you?" how do you answer that question? If somebody says to you, "What do you do?" how do you answer that question now? And then bounce back a little bit to your last birthday that ended in 9 prior to where you are now. And think about how would you answer those same questions. Who are you? And what do you do? And think a little bit about the relationships that you had then. And just explore them. Who were like your best friends? And if you were in a romantic relationship, who were you with then? And is that the same person that you're with now, or is it somebody different? Or has that relationship changed pretty dramatically? Has it gotten way better or not near as good as it was back then? And then go back to the last 9 prior to that. And just quickly through your mind, go through that same set of questions. And then think about back then, 2 9s ago. What were the things that you really wanted most then? And are they the same things that you want now? Or have those changed? And those relationships, were they different back then? And now just go all the way back to 9. The age of 9 when you were 9. And think about the you that was then. What did you want to be when you grew up? What were the things that you imagined were most important to you then? And are those same things still important to you now? And did you ever do the thing that you thought you wanted to do with your life when you were 9? Did you ever do that at all? And is that what you're doing now? Was that just a step on your journey, or did you really tap into your life's purpose? Probably different for everybody in the room. But now, from that point, the 9-year-old you, kind of go back and think about the different 9s, the 19 and the 29 and the 39, all the way up to wherever you are today, and just notice how much you've changed. And for most people, really almost everything has changed. Our bodies certainly have changed. A lot of our attitudes have changed. What we care about has changed. Our relationships have changed. What it is that we're seeking has probably changed. In fact, on one level, change is all we want. Change is all we are on one level. Change is all we want. I mean, think about your day as you go through your day. Most of the things that you're doing is you're seeking change. From a very low level till you wake up and you're a little groggy and you drink a cup of coffee to change so that you'll be more alert, and then you notice that you're hungry and you eat to change and feel full. Drink that coffee and then you have to go to the bathroom, and you go to the bathroom to change that feeling of a full bladder that you've got. And then you go to work to make money, to change your life circumstances, and you think about new relationships and you think about new jobs to change what it is that you want. On one level, all we are is change, and all we want is change. And we live in a life that is ever changing. But as you go back now to that 9-year-old you, notice that part of you that is there for every step of the journey. There's a part of you that if you get quiet enough, you'll notice that hasn't changed at all. It is the exact same you that was at 29 and 19 and 9 and is now. There's a part of you that never has changed. It's always been the same. There's a part of you that doesn't want any of this change, doesn't need any of this change. That is the spiritual being that's having the human experience. And think about, just for a second, fast forward. We all know someday our time in our human experience is going to come to an end. But where does that unchanging part of you go? We don't really know. I mean, there's whole religions built around telling us where that goes and how to act if we want it to go to one place and not another. Truth of the matter is, it is a mystery. We don't really know. But if you're really in that place, you might well be asking the question, what is going to happen? And take a moment to be there, but then come on back to the room, and I got just a little bit more to share before we call it a day today. So, Neem Karoli Baba was Ram Dass's mystical guru. He was the teacher of truth. And he was called the laughing guru because people would ask him these deep questions and he would just laugh. And he would laugh because he was, they say, I mean, I never met him, I don't know, but they say he was laughing because we make it so complicated. The truth that we're looking for, I believe, and what I see when I look at it, and I've been looking at it a long time, and I've been on an interesting journey, as we all have. I mean, that's not unique to me at all. We're all on a really interesting journey, and we're all seeking. I mean, even if we're not here in this room, if we're someplace else in a traditional church or not going to church at all, we're all seeking. We're all looking for something. And we've been conditioned to believe that, and you can just try this as an experiment throughout the day. And you can ask it in 3 ways, just people that you happen to interact. Say, what's one thing, if you had a realistic magic wand about your job that you could change, that if you were able to change that, would make everything completely different?
Paperwork.
What's that?
Paperwork.
Pay for work. Play for work. Paperwork,
There's
if
a
you
lot
could
of
change
paperwork.
paperwork.
A new job.
A new job. Okay, so thank you for the participation. I appreciate that. That's the way it'll go. If you ask people that question, they'll have an answer at the tip of their tongue. I ask it in groups, and I could have done it here, but I've only got 10 minutes left, and it's killing me. I actually don't, because not only is time a construct, but this is only the beginning. If you like this exploration, we're going to do more of it. If you're interested, if you want to see kind of where this journey goes, and it's cool. So ask people that. If you could change, magic wand, you could change one thing. Or you can ask them about your relationships. They've got an answer to that too, and it's right on the tip of their tongue. Ask them about their life in general. One of the questions that I ask when I begin a coaching relationship with people is, if you were to wake up tomorrow and a miracle had happened and everything was exactly the way that you've ever dreamed that it would be, what would that miracle have been? What would have changed for you? And these calls I pretty much have to take because they go on. I have people who've got lots and lots of things. And they're all on the outside. They think that there is something that's out there that's going to change the way that we feel in here. And there's not. And there is an emerging paradigm in psychology. And the work that I do is in that paradigm, helping people to understand. And psychology right now as a science is a mess. There's 350 schools that you can Google on the internet. There's the rational emotive therapy and the cognitive behavioral therapy and Gestalt therapy and Freudian therapy and scream therapy and blah, 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 blah. And this is when things are in their storming part. Organizations and sciences and philosophies, they go through 4 phases. They go through forming. Psychology formed in 1890. William James wrote a book called Psychology, and he invented the word. It didn't exist prior to that. Prior to that, psychology was philosophy. And then he created psychology. And then all of these things kind of started going up. Deborah Faith Rose just joined us and got it. She runs the Hypnosis Center of Anchorage. So now we have 4, 5. Russ is a hypnotist. We have 5 at least hypnotists in the room. Hypnosis is a school of psychology as well. But this emerging paradigm, which doesn't really have a good name, and the name that we're using right now is called the 3 principles. You can go to 3P, P as in principles, GC as in global community, 3pgc.org, and that's kind of the home base on the internet for the work that I do and that we do. And they celebrated not too long ago. We now in that community have 10,000 hours of video instructions and webinars and classes, and it's all free. You can go there and, if you want to take a deep dive, it's all there. And it's all, we, like our little joke in the community is, yay, we've got 10,000 hours. To tell people that the secret is be here now. I got a book coming out. I think it's like 288 pages. And it's a lot of words and a lot of stuff and a lot of stories. And the book is teaching you to be here now. So I'll just kind of wrap it up with each of those things. So the be is be and being. Recognize that we are. Recognize. Realize. Don't get it intellectually. Realize, embody that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. You know, when I talk to people, I'm kind of woo-woo a little bit, and I have to tamp down. Celine and I have been talking about that. Tamping down our woo-woo when we go into corporations. Because you start talking energy and you start talking spiritual beings to corporations, and you can watch the brains short circuit in the room. Oh. I'm not getting it. And sometimes when I'm doing woo-woo and spiritual being, and I'm working with like a fundamentalist Christian, which one of my clients is a very devout fundamentalist, like don't dance type of fundamentalist Christian, and I was having trouble getting through to him. And so one day I'm talking to him, and I'm so frustrated because he was so close. And I'm like, if I could just help him make one little shift in his ship, it would all be clear. I told a friend of mine one time, you know, I call myself a liberation hypnotist. I said, but in reality, what I do is I help people with their ship. And the way that I help them with their ship is by getting a little shift in perception along the way. So really what I should be calling myself, and it could be like my superhero name, Bobby Cobb, Shit Shifter. And I could have a giant SS on my chest, but you know, in the thing that we live in today, if I'm walking around as a superhero with an SS on my chest, I'm going to fire off a lot of trigger warnings, and that's going to be a problem. So with him, what I told him was, think about Jesus if he were to come back right now, in our short attention span, in our millennia. How would he deliver his message? And I'll end it on this. So I'm wrapping it up. I'll end it on this. I said, here's what I believe would be the message from the millennial Messiah. First of all, he'd be a lot hipper now. He wouldn't be like talking old world type stuff.
He'll tweet it.
Got to tweet it. Got to have hashtags. Absolutely right. So the first thing that he would say is, I'm back. Glad to be here again. I've got a new message for you. And it's a lot shorter. We used to have 10 commandments. We're down to 3. He goes, commandment number 1 is recognize you're a child of God. And don't ever forget that. You are my brother. I'm the son of God, but so are you. You are the sons and daughters of God. We are all the children of God. Commandment number 1, don't forget that. Commandment number 2, we got this cool thing called the Holy Spirit. Hashtag Holy Spirit is everywhere. Holy Spirit is in each one of us. It's in this room. It's out in the parking lot. Last night, down at the strip joint, the Holy Spirit was there. And it was figured.
Hallelujah!
I got some work to do in this particular place, but it was there because it's everywhere. So that's commandment number 2. Commandment number 3 is when you forget, and you will, know that I've already forgiven you. I've forgiven you 1,000,000 times, and I'm going to forgive you 1,000,000 times more. And commandment number 3 is when you run across somebody that you're having problems with, forgive them as well. So hashtag 3 new commandments. You are the child of God. Remember that. The Holy Spirit is everywhere. Remember that. And when you forget, know that you're forgiven. I've forgiven you. Forgive yourself. Forgive the other person. Hashtag Millennial Messiah. And I know that can be perceived as disrespectful, and I'm kind of playing it up a little bit to sort of make it fun, but I honestly believe that at the heart of Christianity is that message. If we get that, we got everything else. All of the rest is talking. It's like my book. 288 pages of lots of good stuff and wonderful stories telling you be a spiritual being. Be here. When you're here, wherever here is for you, be here all the way and recognize that the hypnosis of social conditioning is telling you you need to be there. You need to be in the new car. You need to lose the weight. You need to be in the right relationship. You need a bigger diamond ring. You want this, put a ring on it. That's all conditioning. Be here 100% all the time. And remember that here is all there really is. And Don's talking about our commitment and our compact with time. But time's a construct. We should honor the construct. If we say we're going to show up at this idea of 6:30 at night, we should be there. But there's only one time, and it's never ending. It's now. It's the only time that we've got. So in a now that is not yet, if this message has resonated with any of you guys at all, at 6:30, that's where I was going. I'm on track, girl. In a time that is not yet, that we're all agreeing to call Monday, April the 15th at 6:30, we're going to begin a 6-week class in the exploration of this. And we're going to do it in a way, it's an experiential journey. I've been talking a lot today. In these classes, I'm not going to talk a lot. In fact, as these classes go, I ran them, I used to live in Cocoa Beach, Florida, and I ran them in there was a little crystal shop, and they had a yoga studio attached, and I did these classes there. And we set it up as a 6-week class, but people were digging it. And they just kept coming. Because this is the journey that we're all on. And everybody in this room is a guide on the journey, because we're out there spreading the word. The 5 hypnotists or more that are in the room, we're guides, but we're also on the journey. And everybody is on the journey. One of the things that I tell my clients, and I'll wrap it up, Dawn. One of the things that I tell my clients is, when you get something, when you make that shift, and they happen all the time. I had a big one Tuesday. I was interviewing a guy for a podcast that I do. And the podcast will be live in about 3 weeks. If you see it, you'll see me on the screen. This guy said something that hit me so deeply. And on the screen, I'm like, wait. And he's going on. And I'm like, wait. Joel. I said, can you go back and say that again? And to Joel, it was just like, well, yeah, sure. I can go back and say it again. And he goes back and he says it again. And I'm sitting there going, wow. And Joel's going, you saw something, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I saw something big. So I tell people that are on this journey, when you see something, everybody's on the journey. So it's no different than being out hiking one of these trails here, and you're walking one way and you just negotiated some rocks that are still got some ice on it and they're kind of slippery, and you negotiate it, and then you go and you see somebody else who's on the journey, and you stop and you say, hey, FYI, up ahead, there's some rocks and some ice, kind of slippery, be careful. We're all on the journey, and we're all guides on the journey. So if you're interested in diving in this a little bit more deeply, in the now that is not yet, April the 15th at 6:30, we can make a contract to be back here and dive a little bit deeper. And the last thing that I want to say is, as Dawn said, I am a speaker. If you know somebody or some group or a company, I do a lot of this work, sounds very different when I do it there, but if you've got the ears to hear it, you can see that there's only one message that I ever give all day, every day. I would be happy to chat with you about that. Thank you very much for